So for today, thank you for the dad jokes. Those are great. Uh, we'll start off with kind of updates from the Semantic kernel team, and then we can dive into Q&As. It looks like we have a larger audience than the last couple times, which is nice. Before I start going on and on about Semantic kernel things, though, I do want to introduce one of the new team members on the Semantic kernel team. Sophia, she's going to be driving community. She's our community PM. So I'd love for Sophia, if you want to come off mute, you want to tell a bit about yourself, and I know you have an ask for the community that you can share as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Matthew. Hi, everyone. Really nice to meet you. I've been in a couple of the sessions, just kind of getting up to speed. So you may have seen me in some of these sessions earlier. Really excited to get to know all of you. I've been in Microsoft for a bit in the security space. I'm really excited to join the Semantic kernel team and dive into this AI world. And so with that, I do have, as Matthew mentioned, some feedback I'd love to be able to capture from you, just to learn a little bit about who you are, location, time zone preference for office hours, etc. And then what you're building with AI. I'll put the form link in chat. I would love it if you could take a minute or two to fill that out throughout the session. I'll post it again towards the end if you want to do it at the end. Would love to be able to get your feedback and hear from you. But with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Matthew. Looking forward to meeting all of you.
Perfect. And it's a very easy form. It's like your name, email, and some time preferences. And I think we had a name survey this morning, and there's a section on like what you're hoping to learn, kind of your skill level. I know Sophia and I were like, oh yeah, this is great. We know what type of content to start creating for all of you. So it's really, really helpful. Definitely fill it out before you forget. Cool. All right. Thank you, Sophia. And like I said, we'll use this information. We'll start creating some more formal content to make sure that we can prepare for these and bring guest speakers and demos and all those good things. All righty. So in terms of updates from the Semantic kernel side, I'm going to briefly share my screen and show y'all what's up. What we shared in the earlier session today. I'm assuming y'all can see my screen now. Since we last spoke last week, we did have a new release of our .NET library. We're now at 1.4. And I'll go ahead and paste this link in the chat so everyone has access to it. Oops, clicked on the wrong thing.
Did we just lose Matthew?
I am thinking I think the so. Shares by end, and I'm wondering if he may have.
Yeah. We've all done that. We've all done it.
I clicked on the wrong button. Okay, we're back now. Okay, so let's actually. Okay, so I'm pasting in our release notes. All the stuff's great. I think the three highlights for me, based on kind of what we were hearing from the community calls last week. There was some asks around how that you can better use the handlebars planner. So there's been enhancements to that to make it a little bit easier to fine tune the prompt to fit your particular needs. I'm also pretty excited about some of the new audio connectors. So we have some abstractions so that you can use the OpenAI audio to text and text to audio, and I'll show you what that code samples looks like in a bit. And then we also have quite a few enhancements to our OpenAI assistant integration. Probably the one that this audience asked me quite a bit over the last couple of months was, when is Azure getting OpenAI assistance? That happened like a week and a half ago. And then the next question I kept getting is, when is Semantic kernel going to support it? So we now support the OpenAI Assistance API, which is great. So if you are an Azure customer, which I suspect most, if not all of you are, you can now deploy your assistants and use the Semantic kernel SDK in order to facilitate cross-agent collaboration between these different things. So you can check out the different PR, see what was changed. In this one in particular, you can see we have updates to our samples so that it now works for both OpenAI assistants and Azure AI assistants. Okay. And then if we take a look at the audio connectors, let's take a look at that. Unfortunately, don't have a sample I can play for y'all. You're just going to have to kind of trust me that it works, and it's really cool. Kernel syntax examples, and we'll put audio. So remember, kernel syntax example is kind of the best place to see the latest and greatest. That's where the engineers kind of have their test cases. But it's pretty simple to use these services. So once you've created the, in this case, text to audio service, you can grab it. And in this case, we just pass in some sample text. Hey, my name is John. You pass it to the model. You can choose the voice, the response format, the speed. You can then save it to your file system so that you can then play it afterwards. And then likewise, if you want to go the reverse direction, if you want to go from audio to text, you can provide it your audio file and then get the text back. So what we've been doing on the Semantic kernel side is we've started creating agents that can actually talk to us on Microsoft Teams, kind of going back and forth. It's really great to have this kind of live, collaborative, synchronous collaboration with agents, and that's now possible at least on the audio front. We'll keep adding additional multimodal models to Semantic kernel as we keep going. So I want to take a pause there and see if there's any questions about kind of the new features, the additional configuration that's available with handlebars planners, the new audio connectors, and the enhancements to the Assistance API. Daniel.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey,
Oh,
do you know if the audio
you.
connectors? Do you know if the audio connectors support the Azure Speech Service APIs as well, or is it just the OpenAI ones at this point?
That's a great question. So we created the abstractions, and the first implementation was OpenAI. This coming sprint, so in the next week or so, we'll also add the support for Azure Cognitive Search, or sorry, Azure Cognitive Services, which include Azure Speech.
Awesome. Perfect. Thanks, Matthew.
Cool. From our initial testing, it's hard to beat the text-to-speech from OpenAI. But Azure is pretty good about transcription, so speech to text. So we're definitely excited about getting that integrated into Semantic kernel. Cool. Alrighty. One of the call to actions that I gave the folks in the earlier office hours, if y'all want to go ahead and play around with the speech service, if y'all get a demo working, we'd love to see it during the next office hours. And if not, I can come more prepared with a demo for all of y'all to take a look at. Alrighty. With that, we can go ahead and open it up to Q&A. So we have a decent number of folks. And while we're waiting for folks to either type it in the chat, again, you can raise your hand. I will kind of hit on some of the questions that folks were asking in the earlier sessions. The top one was, when is V1 going to land for the Python SDK? We shared this a few times in previous office hours, but it looks like we have a bit of a bigger audience here. So I'm just going to kind of reinforce or reshare what our plan is in the Python space. So as you know, or hopefully many of you know, we have our .NET library currently at 1.4. A lot of it's kind of solid. We're not going to have any breaking changes. But many folks in the AI space, most folks in the AI space, Python is their language of choice. And so what we want to do on the Semantic kernel side is make sure our Python SDK is at parity, if not even further along than our current .NET version. Right now, it's quite a bit behind. And so we have a blog post, which I'll go ahead and paste in the chat, which describes kind of our strategy for updating the Python library to meet 1.0. You can start seeing our timelines in this view right here. In the next week or two, we plan on releasing a beta version of the Python SDK. And this also goes for our Java SDK as well, that matches the interface of the .NET version. And then there'll be additional features that will invest in and fund ahead of Microsoft build so that we can get to parity by that build, that May timeline. Okay. What's great is because we're open source, our project, our backlog is all public. If at any point you're interested in seeing what our progress looks like, getting to the 1.0 for Python, you can always open up our backlog and check it out. What you'll notice, both if you read this blog and if you take a look at our backlog, what we've prioritized were all the major breaking changes, things that require changes to the interfaces, new classes, changes of classes, deletion of classes. Those were the things that we prioritized first. And you can see quite a bit of them are currently in review, and they should be checked in by end of week or early next week. Our hope is that once these large breaking changes are in, we'll be able to more rapidly add some of the additional features that are really powerful in the .NET library. One of my favorites is the auto function calling feature in .NET. And what's great about getting the breaking changes out of the way is if you are a Python developer, if you do want to contribute, if you do want to help, we've been adding needs help tags, and we've started, as you can kind of see down here, many of these are actually external folks outside of Microsoft who are interested in helping contribute back to the Python SDK. So if that's someone like yourself, definitely go to one of these issues, mention myself in here, and we can make sure it's tagged, and we can even meet with you one-on-one to make sure you're supported building on any of these Python features. Cool. So it looks like I killed enough time for folks to start sharing some questions in the chat. Let's take a look at what those are. So Luke has a question, and once I finish reading this, Luke, if you want to come off mute and kind of share any other additional insights, that'd be great. So Luke asks, I think he knows the answer, but he wants to make sure, am I on the right track? Assistance versus semantic kernel, when would you use one versus the other? So for us, it's not one or the other. Likely you'd want to use both together. So the assistance API provided by OpenAI basically provides this really great abstraction. Let's go ahead and go to OpenAI Assistance. Really great abstraction of working with agents, right? So you can give it files, you can have a chat with it, you can give it actions or plugins, and it kind of works on this thread concept, right? Now, the hard part when using the Assistance API is you still have to manage this run lifecycle where you queue up something, you get a tool request or a function that needs to be processed, you then perform that action, and then you kind of just go through this loop until finally the assistant is done, and then it can accept a new message from the user. This work is very similar to the work that you would have to do with providing plugins to the chat completion APIs. And so within Semantic Kernel, we make it really easy for you to actually build on top of the Assistance API. So if we go to the Semantic Kernel syntax examples, we can kind of take a look at what some of these look like. Kernel syntax examples, we have a bunch that are all called agents in the name. And I'll just paste a few of these into the chat. And this is basically the way that you can use the Assistance API with Semantic Kernel, right? And the value, if we take a look at the tool one, the value of using Assistance with Semantic Kernel is that we make it easy for you to, actually, let me get one of the other ones, agents. We make it easy for you to add in plugins to your agent so that it can use it. And we will do the hard work of managing that loop process, call all the functions, give that information back to the agent so that all you have to do is really just define your agent. Sorry, that's not an agent. Define your agent, give it the plugins you need, and then start talking with it. So definitely check that out. And we have a few blog posts kind of outlining our integration with the Assistance API. So this is the one I'd highly recommend. It kind of shows you kind of what our integration looks like, and also provides some additional links to other content about our integration with OpenAI Assistance. Okay. All righty. And then Jim asked, any example using Semantic Kernel with Azure AI Content Safety? I assume it should be straightforward to plumb in. So most people I've seen, they just enable Azure AI Content Safety when they're deploying their model on Azure AI. And then you basically kind of get it for free, like whenever you're calling your model through Semantic Kernel, you'll get that content safety, you'll get the blocks if necessary, all of that good stuff. So yes, in terms of like the easy route, it's pretty seamless. There are some scenarios where maybe you're using another model that's not in Azure, but you still want to use the content safety capabilities. I think this is where the hooks or the event infrastructure that Semantic Kernel has really comes into play. So if you haven't played with the filters within Semantic Kernel today, let's take a look at that sample. What you can do is you can provide kind of these hooks, these events that get fired whenever a function is starting to be invoked, after it's invoked, when a prompt is starting to be rendered, after it's been rendered, so before it goes to the LLM. And what's great about this is this provides you a really easy way for you to define, hey, whenever the prompt is finally rendered, before sending it to the LLM, instead of just doing a write line or a log right here, you could actually call the Azure AI Content Safety functionality. It could come back and say, hey, this is good, this is bad, and you could cancel the operation as part of this filter so that the AI doesn't do anything that you don't want it to do, right? So if you haven't played around with hooks, definitely check it out. We've implemented using .NET filters here, so you can see how we have both an iPrompt filter and an iFunction filter. And once you define these filters, you can add them to your kernel. And every time a new function or every time a new prompt is run, these filters will be triggered. And that gives you the assurance that the safety checks that you have from a responsible AI perspective are always fired, always triggered for your application. Okay. Great question. Great question. I guess, Jim, did you? I see you've come off mute. Have any other follow-up questions?
No, that's good. That gives me a useful point to start looking at if I need some sort of more custom route than that. But it sounds like you can just. I wasn't aware that you could actually just turn that on by default, set the levels when you're selecting your model. So that's going to be some configuration I can set up in the Azure portal, just some configuration.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, that's what most customers do. And if you're deploying your models on Azure, that's what I would recommend. I would only go down the expert route, I guess.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to use content safety on a model that's not deployed on Azure.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, we're about to start like an internship project, a 3-month project. We've got some students coming in. We're going to be looking at adding some Gen AI capabilities to a learning platform for students. So we're going to be looking at enabling teachers to write prompts that will help them generate lesson plans. And so we obviously want to make sure that we're covering the kind of AI safety route as part of that. So
yes,
that's useful info. Thanks.
And especially if you're making this like a course, yes, you want to use some of these like services. The other thing I guess I'd recommend is oh God, where was it going? Showing like kind of the approval process. So whenever an AI wants to perform a function, showing those flows of like, oh, this is a delete operation. Before I actually do this, I should actually get explicit approval from the user. Having a few of those types of scenarios, I think it's good kind of learning and education. I haven't seen a lot of folks actually implement that, and I think as we as
yeah, no, we're planning on doing all of the do checks and diligence, and actually this is more of it's definitely going to be a human in the loop, because this is just going to be an authoring tool for the teachers who will actually then verify the content that's generated. So yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, Canada, and that's a good example. Do you hear about that? I think they're being
No.
sued because
Wait,
their chatbot gave out some incorrect information. So, but I think a good use case, quite a lot of the cases where you use these kind of Gen AI tools to help you as more of an assistant rather than doing direct assessment or making decisions that affect anyone. So yes, we've got the safety and the checks and balances in mind. So
perfect.
yeah.
Perfect. And in that case, I think y'all will be big users of kind of those events and hooks. I've seen a lot of people use that to like filter out PII, or if the AI wants to do a plan that is disapproved, to like cancel it. If you run into any issues, it is still experimental because we're collecting feedback still. If you have feedback on those filters, on those hooks, let us know, and we'll make it even better.
Cool. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. And then Simon, as an extension to Luke's question, when do I want to use assistants versus rolling my own? I know assistants take care of so much. When should I use something else like kernel memory and Llama Index? Simon, I see you turned on your video. Do you want to add on to your question?
I probably just rambled, but the I guess, yeah, like like I want to take advantage of a whole lot of that goodness, and like memory and thread management and all that stuff. But I still want to be able to do the cool stuff that you could do in kernel memory, like have control how the extraction works, how the embedding works, but maybe do certain things with certain files, all that. Like I love kernel memory. I think it's pretty cool, but yeah, can they work together, or is it kind of all or nothing?
Yeah. So it is not all or nothing. I will get to that. But to answer your first question, like, are there some bright reasons why you would not want to use assistants? For that, I would definitely point out kind of the limitations that they post on their own website.
Yeah.
As we've done internal things, probably the most painful one is that you can't do streaming of output, which can lead to like slow experiences. And then they don't have native support for things like images. And then the last big one that they don't mention in their limitations is whenever you're creating that chat history object, or what they call a thread. In the chat completion models, you can create system messages, you can create assistant messages, you can kind of do really advanced prompt engineering techniques. With the assistants, you can only add user messages, and the only thing allowed to create system or assistant messages are OpenAI itself.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you run into any of those as limitations, that would be a reason why you would want to kind of roll your own. And we're working on some abstractions to make that easy for folks. I guess to answer your question though, is if these aren't hitting you and you want to use assistants, do you still have some flexibility on how you do some of the RAG pieces? And the answer is yes, right?
Yeah.
What's nice about these assistants is you can bring in any custom tool or plugin. Creating assistants, tool. There we go. So you can add different tools, right? And what's nice is you can actually say, hey, I'm going to disable the out-of-the-box knowledge retrieval tool. And instead, I will load in my own custom tool via function calling. And that custom tool can use kernel memory, right? And so that's a way of kind of using whatever pieces you want without being forced to use all of it.
Yeah, because there was also like the document upper limits or whatever. Wasn't there like 10 or 20 documents or whatever? Like, is all that the same on Azure OpenAI?
I believe so. I know there's like some slight subtleties. I personally haven't done the homework to figure out what exactly is different.
Yeah, okay.
but it's not. What we've done tests on was like the assistance API has like very basic RAG. Like if you're building something for your enterprise, you're probably going to need to do something a little bit more custom.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, man. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah. All righty. Some really good questions on assistance. Lida or Lida, hopefully I got that sort of right. Please correct me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is Lida. Thank you for it. Matthew, I just had a quick question for you to help me to go through the GitHub. I'm familiar with Semantic API, but I haven't applied it to my code yet. I tell you what's the problem. I have this OpenAI model and was running a pipeline to do some multi-categorization, like a lot of unstructured text that we have is like employee feedback data. I send it to the model return with some kind of text, basically a label, predefined label. And there are like a lot of prompt engineering, as you can imagine, have been done to this situation. And very ugly way my prompt is written on a JSON file. So I'm calling the JSON file and putting the prompt into the API and send it through. So looking at Semantic API, I think I can do it much nicely through the function way, right? The problem I have when I upgrade the model right now with this setting, the prompt text that I have, for example, the model being updated from, let's say, ChatGPT Turbo 4K to 16K or to ChatGPT 4, the outcome change. And although I specified the outcome, for example, I want the labels be separated by semicolon, it's just keep failing on that. It's just because those models are stronger and they are sending a lot of other documents. So I am hoping using function and semantic kernel would help to that setting, because you will limit the outcome to the specific we want. I wonder where I should start. And the program is written in Python as well. So
it's in Python. Okay.
Python.
So yeah, so if you're in Python, I don't know if you were here at the beginning. Our Python library is going through quite a bit of change right now, and there's some churn. I just want to throw some caution that some of our docs are a bit outdated because of the breaking changes, so it might be difficult. So what I think just to help you get started and situated, some guidance that might help you with your prompt engineering. One, the more you can model or ask the AI to create output that it already knows how to do or seen a lot of examples of. So if you ask it to create a JSON output, say, hey, this is a JSON schema, make sure you populate it, it will likely populate that better than something custom that you're asking it to do, like a comma delimited list of labels or something like that. So that's one recommendation.
Okay.
And then if you do end up using semantic kernel, especially as we start adding like function calling support, what's nice about function calling is you can give it a function and say, hey, the input is an array of categories. I'm assuming you have like labels or something that it's an array of that you're getting.
Yeah.
Because you're asking it to like run this method, and again, it's like code and it's been trained to create things like arrays to call these functions.
Yeah.
We found that it also helps with making it more deterministic about providing this information so that you can get it, serialize it, and then do something with native code with it.
Right. These functions, I look at I think you're right, your semantic kernel is very strong on C#, which I'm thinking to move to that coding actually. But having that, because the code is already there in Python, I wonder to upgrade it. The first approach you mentioned, can we send a JSON output to the model Because what I am doing is I am writing into the prompt that the output looks like this. And when the model change, it mess it up again. It doesn't care about the output. But are you saying that we could send the text structure to the model to say the output should look like this? Did I understand the first approach correctly?
Yeah, let me just do a quick playground example, just make it a little bit more concrete. So it's been a while since I've done this. Let's do chat. Okay. So we can say you will
Categorize
for content. These are the following labels you can choose from. Let's say happy, sad.
Usually, yeah.
Or that. Return the results in a JSON format with the following schema.
Right.
Right, and then you can provide JSON schema here. And what our team has found is when you ask it to return something more like code that it's been trained on, like it's seen probably hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of different examples of JSON schema, then it will do a better job of always outputting that right result. What it sounded like you were doing.
Yeah, I was writing output in the kind of a close bracket, and I was providing the schema inside that close bracket. But you're saying we could ask for JSON output directly. That is very interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Include an array of motions. I don't know. I'm just going to copy and paste this.
And it doesn't hate examples. So if you give it examples as well, that's even better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, if you okay, so now we have this, and we can now paste this into here. And then I don't know who is speaking, but of course you could have an example.
Yeah, let's say this. I don't like Viva. I like Viva. Something about. Oh, the labels are different. So it's like I'm happy today. I'm not happy today. But
yeah, I think it, and then output. I think if you go down this direction, you'll have a little bit more luck with getting the results that you want.
Right. So you basically define a schema there. Fantastic. I didn't know that. Thank you very much. That is a very good help. And your recommendation of if we want to go the semantic kernel approach, it's best to switch to C# basically. And that's it.
I would say I did something wrong. Oh, look, I don't have enough money on this one. I would say in the next month, I would stay away from the Python. By early March, mid-March, it will actually start being a little bit more usable, very much more usable, and it'll start to be less breaking changes. And at that point, it'll be a little bit safer for you to use. So depending on kind of like the timelines of your project, and if you are able to wait,
yeah, we could wait. We could wait. I mean, this is in production, kind of. We're still like earlier stage of it, so I'm happy to upgrade it later on to a better function. But yeah, that's okay. It's still in a month or so. Can I have a copy paste of that code on my personal, or you text me or put it on the chat? Would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the help.
Yeah, you'll have to finesse it even more, I'm sure, but hopefully that gets you put in the right direction. Okay. And then what I love about these office hours is other people have recommendations. So it looks like Daniel says also had success giving it C# model and asking it to give JSON that it can be serialized into. So basically any sort of like structure definition. There's a whole project called TypeChat where they use like TypeScript models in order to describe the structure of these things. But the more you can describe the structure using coding, stuff that the model understands, the more likely you'll get an output that works. The one last thing, if you do have it output JSON, the newer models, they also have a flag. I'll go ahead and share my screen one more time. They also have a flag. The API reference, chat, JSON. They have a flag called response format, and you can actually ask it to return back JSON. Now, it doesn't ensure that it's the right JSON, but it at least validates that it's returning valid JSON schema, which can also improve the reliability of your application.
This is calling function, right? This is when you create you provide a response. Oh, in the response format, you can, okay, in the actual format of the API, you can call it format,
Exactly.
response format. Oh, fantastic. That is also new. I didn't know that. That's great. Thank you.
The JSON mode now enabled in Semantic Kernel. I think there was an issue with it earlier. Yeah, we were waiting for Azure OpenAI to support it. I believe that got resolved a few weeks ago. So you can now use that, as well as, I think the other one people wanted to use was seed, the seed parameter. That's also working. Great question, Jonathan. Okay, and then Jonathan also asked, what would be the best way to get logging? Collecting information like the question asked, response steps, could that be done using filters? Yes, it can be done using filters. I would also recommend all of our code has built-in logging support already, and all you have to do is provide the kernel with a logger. So let me go ahead and show you what that looks like. So if we open up, let's see, if Visual Studio want to open up for me, Visual Studio. Oh my goodness. Okay, here we go. Let's open up. Let's just do this getting started one. Okay, so we open up this sample. You can see when I create this kernel, we can add to it a logging service, add logging. In this particular one, I'm saying, hey, I want to add it to my debug console, and I want to set the minimum logging to trace so I can basically get everything. This, of course, is helpful for like local debugging, just to see kind of what's going on. And you can, once this gets started, we'll be able to see all of the different behaviors of the AI. If you have a App Insights subscription or another kind of telemetry service, you can, of course, add that as a logging service to the kernel, and all of these same logs will automatically go there. I recommend this because instead of you having to figure out all the things that should be logged, we already provide that out of the box. And if there's additional things that you want logged, you can, of course, use the filters, the hooks, in order to add your own custom telemetry. We've seen quite a few people do that as well. So for this example, it's my standard light plugin example, where the AI can turn on and off a light. So I can ask it to, can you toggle the light? We go to the debug view. You should see, oh no, why didn't I not see it? Did I mess up? Let's just run it one more time. Okay, or now it's showing, okay. Can you toggle the light? And so if we go into the debug column view, we can see all of the different prompts that are being sent to OpenAI. We can see that there was a request. That request was to first get the state of the light bulb. Is it on or off? We can see that it was returned that the light bulb is off. The AI then was smart enough to call the change state method with the new state equals true. And so we can see those arguments being passed in. We can see that the result of that function is that the light is now on. and that kind of gives you a little bit more visibility as to what is actually happening behind the scenes throughout this entire AI application, in case you don't have other logging or print statements that show you what's going on. So definitely check that out. It's super nice. It's one line of code, and you can start getting a bunch of different logging available to you. And then the other thing, if you really want to go deep into logging and telemetry, we do have an entire .NET sample all about telemetry. It's called the telemetry example, and you can kind of walk through both setting up this application and playing around with it, and it also gives you some out-of-the-box queries that you can try running to give you some of the things that we look at when we are investigating some of our planners, our token usage, and some of the other pieces of semantic kernel. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this into the chat, so y'all can check that out as well. Yeah, and to Simon's point, like, to me, this is the main value of semantic kernel over something like a LangChain. Because everything is encapsulated into the single object, you have one place that you can turn on something like logging. With LangChain, you kind of have to attach it to all of your different chains, or even sometimes the components of those chains, which can be time consuming, or you might miss something. We make it really easy. One place, you have your logging, it's there. You're not going to miss anything. Cool. And awesome, Jonathan. Okay, it sounds great that you're using for terminal output, and the next thing is upgrading it so that y'all can send it over to App Insights and Log Analytics. That'll be great. Okay, cool. Well, in that case, we might start winding things down. Sophia, this might be a good point to reshare your survey.
Perfect.
So
I was actually just about to do it. So great minds think alike.
Tremendously. And what's the story with a golden pillow? What's the golden pillow? Are you referring to that thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so John Maida, who's our VP of design over in Kernel, when we got to V1.0 of .NET, he got us a balloon.
Oh, that's epic. Yeah.
This is the semantic kernel 1.0 for .NET. Python and Java are on the way. And the other thing that's exciting is in March, we'll be celebrating our 1-year birthday for semantic kernel. And don't tell anyone, shh, we're getting a new logo. So get excited, So we'll probably be making a big push to move everyone to 1.0 or 1.4, whatever .NET is having. Great fun question. It's not a pillow, it's a big old one. Are you getting the logo created by unfortunately not, or fortunately not, I don't know which side of the coin you're on. We have a design team in France. Anyway, this is like super in the weeds. But they're the ones that create all the fancy new Microsoft logos, and meeting with them, you're like, wow. They think about things like colors and lines more than I think about, I don't know, a lot of stuff. So we'll be good. All righty. Well, as always, this was great. Oh, Simon, you had a question.
You saw me like breathe in. I was gonna say, so I'm really sad that Chat Copilot is just kind of going. Like, we're not taking it out to the back paddock and shooting it, but it's. I think that you've been kind of talking a lot more about some of the other, like, AI in a box, and then we've seen like the Azure Chat stuff. Is there any other new exciting stuff that you've seen pop up? Because because the AI in a box, so it's interesting because it's all seems to be like really like bot framework focused and stuff. So that's actually is really kind of attractive, because it could be really easy to like go and throw into Teams or whatever you wanted to do there. So that's cool. But yeah, anything else you've seen coming?
Yeah, those are the main ones. Internally on the Semantic Kernel team, we're building out some new samples that I'll be excited to share with y'all soon. It's probably worth giving some background on like why we are trying to sunset Chat Copilot. There's a couple reasons. One, it's probably important to like know why we built it in the first place. It was supposed to be kind of a way of teaching folks, hey, this is how you use Semantic Kernel. Everyone loves a good Copilot or chat experience. Like this is how you would build it with Semantic Kernel. I'm going to be super open kimono. What we built, which is really complicated for someone off the street going, oh, what is Semantic Kernel? How does it work? Landing in something like Chat Copilot, we found that no one really could learn how it worked. It was that complicated. And so folks were kind of just deploying it without necessarily knowing what was happening under the scenes. And so we weren't getting that learning objective that we wanted with that project. If it took off a gangbusters, I think we'd still be supporting it. But the other thing we've seen in the industry is folks are starting to align on these particular agent or chat protocols. So there's like three main kind of standardizations that we've seen the industry move into. Every single LLM and UI is starting to map to the OpenAI chat completion protocol. So there's now like a dime for dozen different UI frameworks that will take an OpenAI request and visualize the chat going back and forth. So we didn't see that much value in us providing something similar, but using a proprietary API REST service that didn't plug and play with anyone else. And then the other big protocol, you mentioned bot framework, right? So what we're seeing from customers is, yes, there's a few that want to build their own kind of branded chat copilot, or sorry, chat GPT experience, right? And that's why a lot of people liked Chat Copilot. But we're seeing a lot of customers in the enterprise space, what they really want is they want a copilot that runs in WhatsApp or Microsoft Teams or Facebook Messenger, like where their customers or their employees are. And so we're seeing a lot more traction in things like Semantic Kernel in a box that uses bot framework and makes it much easier to deploy an agent in those places. And so as we kind of look forward, both because it wasn't the best teaching asset and because we saw our customers kind of moving towards different deployment channels or mechanisms, that those things combined made it really hard for us to continue to invest in it. Instead, now we're working with other teams to find suitable replacements. And where customers have taken a really strong dependency on Chat Copilot, we're now meeting with them one-on-one to figure out what are their needs. If we can find a replacement, great. And if not, we're trying to get creative to make sure that they're well supported as part of this transition process.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, and Jonathan shared, end up rebuilding it because it was too complicated and slow. On the slow bit, at the time, it's crazy how things at the time, because we were more of like a research team, things have definitely changed. We're now more like, how do we build a production SDK? Kind of the direction we got from our leadership is use more tokens because it means you're doing more AI research than anyone else. So I agree. The current, it got better over time, but the earlier versions of Chat Copilot were very token intensive. It could be slow at times. Okay, good question. And hopefully y'all appreciate the candor. And like I said, if y'all have a customer that is using Chat Copilot and they are frustrated, please let us know. We are doing one-on-ones. We're meeting with them. We want to make sure that people make it to the other side, happy with their product, happy with Microsoft, and happy with Semantic Kernel, right? So please let us know if we can help in any way. Alrighty. Well, in that case, I'm going to go ahead and wind things down. Thanks, y'all, for joining. Again, one last plug. If you haven't filled out the survey, please do. This particular audience, we're especially trying to figure out timing. Since we've had issues with attendance in the past, this is actually a pretty decent crowd this time. So let us know if there's a time slot that works better or a frequency that works better for all of you. Alrighty, thanks y'all. Cheers, bye.
Thanks, Matthew. Thanks,
brother.
Sophia.
See ya.
Bye all. See you.
See you, man. Bye, everyone.